Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever and whenever you may be watching this video. This is for sections 13 and 14 of Global Communication 1. This is the makeup class for Children's Day, which is the 5th of May. And I hope this makeup lecture will be interesting and informative. I'm also going to give you your third homework assignment. So this is an important lecture. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Let me just share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about analysis essays and also problem solvers. Problem solvers, you can't really see it here. The article that I asked you to read for homework was called Problem Solvers, Which One Are You? And also to complete the exercises B, C, and D. We'll be doing that at the beginning of our class on next Tuesday. I thought the article itself was quite interesting because different people do have different styles of decision making. And I think it can be quite helpful if you are aware that different people have different ways of approaching problems. When I think of the different relationships that I have with people in my life, different friends, family members, I can see very clearly how different people answer or how different people approach different problems. And I think it can cause misunderstandings. Sometimes we think, what is wrong with the person? Why are they trying to solve a problem this way? Why don't they try and solve a problem my way or another way? And I think that's because different people have certain ways of approaching and solving problems that are different. And it's, I think, quite good to acknowledge that there's not one correct way to solve problems. Each way of approaching and solving a problem has its own advantages and disadvantages. And it's always good to approach things with an open mind, especially if you're working on a project with classmates or co-workers and you're trying to accomplish something together. But it can be very hard if different people have different ways of approaching it. Some might be questioners, which means they will think of 100 things that could go wrong and just question after question. Very good at bringing up issues that you might not have thought about. And sometimes they do bring up important concerns that you might not have considered at first. But it does make the decision-making process very slow. Ideators, they're great at coming up with 100 different solutions for a particular problem. A lot of these solutions might not be practical, and they might not be very good at choosing the solution, but they are very good at just coming up with possible solutions. That's their particular strength. Other people are diggers, which means they are the ones that love to do research. Before they decide on something, they want to look at all the different factors and make sure they understand everything before they make a decision. Doers, on the other hand, love to make their decisions very quickly without even needing to know all of the information. They go from their gut. They have a gut instinct and they think, let's do this. They might not even have a complete solution in mind when they make their decision. Instead, they're more interested in just getting the decision made and then moving on to the next thing. And they figure that they can solve any problems that come up as they go along. And then finally, reasoners. Reasoners are the people that take a real macro view of an issue. They don't want to get lost in the details. They are really good at looking at the big picture and sort of keeping things simple. This is really about A or B. The rest are just details, and then they'll just try and narrow it down to those two choices. There are advantages and disadvantages for each style of decision making. We'll be looking at this article and also exercises B, C, and D and some related issues in our next class on Tuesday. Okay, now let's take a look at analysis essays. And this is where I will introduce the second option for your third homework assignment. Okay, so very quickly, the purpose of an analysis essay is to analyze a topic. Now, that might sound straightforward, but you would be surprised how many people misunderstand what I'm asking for when I tell students to write an analysis essay. If you remember nothing else from this makeup lecture, please remember this. The purpose of an analysis essay is to analyze. It's not to evaluate a topic. You're not making a judgment. You're not saying that something is better or worse than something else. A is better than B. You're not trying to describe something we should do or shouldn't do, or something should be done or shouldn't be done. All you're doing is taking a look at a particular situation or phenomenon, a topic, and you're breaking it down into smaller parts and examining each part individually. You're describing why something happens. You're describing how something happens. If you've ever written an essay that had a thesis statement like, there are 3 reasons why, well, then you've probably written an analysis essay, because that's typically what they do. They describe a situation and then they look at 3 reasons for that particular situation, or 3 reasons that will describe some part of that. Now, the structure for an analysis essay is fairly basic, nothing too surprising. You have your introductory paragraph. If it was a really long analysis essay, you might even have 2 paragraphs, but usually it's 1. And in the introduction, you might give us a little bit of background to the topic. Remember, it's always good to assume that the reader doesn't know very much about the topic. So when you write your introduction, think to yourself, if I really didn't know anything about this issue, what would I need to know in order to make sense of it? Give it me some background, maybe a general statement or 2, and then finish up your introduction with the thesis statement, which is your main idea, what you'll be exploring in the body of the essay. Then in the body of the essay, you'll have your paragraph, your body paragraphs. In a very typical 5-paragraph essay, you'll have 3 body paragraphs. Each body paragraph will have its own topic sentence, followed by supporting sentences. And at the beginning of each paragraph, you'll often have transition words. First, second, or next, finally, just to show that you're going from your first supporting idea to your second supporting idea to your third supporting idea. And then you go on to your conclusion, where you restate the thesis, you paraphrase the main idea. So you're saying the main idea again in similar words. Don't repeat it word for word. You might summarize the main points and then offer a final thought, a prediction, or an observation on the topic itself. Okay, now I'd like to give you a few fairly common analysis essay topics. These have been done by many students. They're quite typically given in essay writing classes. Here's the first one. Why do some athletes use illegal drugs to improve their performance? I think this is a pretty interesting topic. It's illegal to take steroids and other performance enhancing drugs, but there are some athletes that do them, even though there's a good chance that they might get caught. And if they get caught, they could get suspended, they could get kicked out of the sport, they might lose the opportunity to participate in the Olympics or another important event. They could be publicly disgraced. So with all of these risks, why do some athletes still use illegal drugs to help them lift heavier weights, or to run faster, or to do their sport better than they normally could? It's a good question. Next, why do a lot of people idolize celebrities? It's very common for people to think of celebrities, whether they're pop idols or movie stars, as very special. You know, they're not ordinary people. There's something glamorous about them. We want to find out about their personal life. We want to find pictures on social media. We think of them as somewhat people removed from regular society. Why do we idolize them? Why do we make them into almost gods? Another topic is, why do a lot of people like to have pets? And I think this is quite an interesting topic too. Lots of people have pets, whether they're cats or dogs or mice or, I don't know, spiders, snakes, chickens. You can have almost any kind of animal as a pet. Why do people have them? I think there are a couple of really good reasons. Some people might want companionship. Others might just be attracted to the cuteness of a particular animal. They might think that the animal is very beautiful and they like looking at it. There are a lot of different reasons. And that would be a very easy topic to choose. You know, there are 3 reasons why a lot of people like to have pets. First of all, next, why do people sometimes tell lies? I don't think there is anybody in the class that has not told a lie at some point in time, and that includes myself. Why do people sometimes tell lies? And you could list 3 separate reasons why people commonly tell lies. What do people who live to be 100 years old have in common? Okay, this one's a little bit different. It's not asking why people do something. It's asking about what does a specific group of people have in common? And this is another one, you know, what do successful people have in common? What do people who live to be 100 years old have in common? And then looking at 3 characteristics that you're likely to find with this particular group. What are some causes of depression among young people? Depression rates are quite high amongst teenagers and people in their 20s. What are a few reasons why a lot of young people are depressed? And finally, why do some people prefer to take a vacation in their own country rather than go abroad? There are some people that really don't want to travel to another country for a vacation. They would rather just have a vacation in their own country. You could look at 3 reasons for why people would rather travel domestically rather than internationally. Okay, so if you want to do an analysis essay for your 3rd homework assignment, here are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, have a clear thesis statement. Let me just move there we go, put my little rectangle there. All right, have a clear thesis statement. Remember, a thesis statement is not a question. And I've had a lot of essays in the past where students have written their introduction, but there's no clear thesis statement. There's a question, but there's not a statement. Remember, a thesis statement cannot be a question because a statement is a statement. A question is a question. They're different. So if you write in your introduction as the last sentence, why do people study a foreign language? That is not a thesis statement. People study a foreign language for a variety of reasons. That's a thesis statement. If you want to include the supporting ideas in the thesis statement, you can do that too, although you don't have to. People study a foreign language for a variety of reasons, such as interest in a foreign culture, desire to travel abroad, and also as a requirement in school. That would be a thesis statement. Whereas, why do people study a foreign language? That would not qualify as a thesis statement. So please keep that in mind. A thesis statement is a statement, it's not a question. Next, it's not about you unless it is. Another common error that I've noticed among students' essays is when they will have a general topic and then use their own specific circumstances as an example. And you can, in this case, I think, easily make the mistake of using a very specific example to try and paint a broad, brush over a very large topic. Take this, for example. People prefer to take a vacation in their own country rather than travel abroad for several important reasons. This is the topic sentence from an old student's analysis essay. That's the original sentence. People prefer to take a vacation in their own country rather than traveling abroad for several important reasons. I added in some, the word some, for a very specific reason. I think it's important not to generalize too much. If you say people prefer to take a vacation in their own country rather than travel abroad, you mean people in general, the majority of people. And I think or maybe even all people. And that can be a very dangerous generalization to make. It's always good to remember we live in a world of exceptions. So rather than saying or implying all people, say some people, many people, a lot of people, or there are people who, that's a lot better. Okay, let's take a look at this example. First, traveling abroad can be very expensive. I'm a student and do not have a job. Therefore, I cannot easily afford a plane ticket and other expenses associated with international travel. Besides, I don't even have a passport. Now, this example would be fine if the purpose of the essay was to analyze 3 reasons why this individual student prefers to take a vacation in Korea rather than travel overseas. But the thesis statement is referring to people in general. Now, if you're talking about people in general, that includes students, but it also includes people with jobs and money, and people without money. It includes a very, very wide selection of people. In that case, it's probably much better to give a general reason. Now, traveling abroad can be very expensive. That's a good supporting idea. And actually, the expenses for an international trip are one of the reasons why some people prefer to take a vacation domestically. But don't use your own specific situation as an example, because it's too specific. If you have a general idea, traveling abroad can be very expensive, and that's why some people prefer to take a vacation in their own country. Keep the example as general as you can. Don't use yourself as an example. If your essay is about your reasons for doing something or not doing something, then you can discuss your own specific situation. But if you're just talking about people in general, then don't use yourself as an example. Number 3, avoid absolutist terms. This relates to what I said before about, it's very rare that 100% of people do something, or 100% of people want something or think something. We live in a world of exceptions. So that's why it's a very good idea to avoid the following terms. All, everyone, everybody, everything, no one, nothing, always, without exception. A lot of absolute statements that use words like all or everyone are usually incorrect. So it's not a good idea to say that everybody does something, or everybody thinks something, or everybody wants something. Actually, even saying people plus a general claim can be a little bit risky. It's better to qualify your argument by saying many people, if it's quite likely that the majority of people do something. Or it is common for some people to do something, or people tend to do something, or people have a tendency to do something, or a specific group of people have 3 things in common, like people that live to be 100 years old. People who do something do it for 3 main reasons. That would be a lot better than saying everybody does something. Okay, also remember to use transitions between body paragraphs. So start your first body paragraph with first, then maybe the second body paragraph, you could say second or next or moreover. The third one, you might say finally or third. Make sure that you do that. So it's very easy for the reader to follow how you're going from your first point to your second point to your third point. Okay, so here is your second option for assignment 3. I'd like you to write an analysis essay on a topic of your choice. It should be approximately 350 words. If you choose to do an analysis essay, please check your topic with me first. So send a message on Sogang Tok Tok and I will give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down, whatever the case may be. Please make sure you confirm your topic on Sogang Tok Tok with me. Send me a personal message and I'll answer. Please remember that the assignment should be uploaded to Cyber Campus using Microsoft Word. Please do not use HWP. I will not accept Hangul Word files. The file name, as I've mentioned before, should be your student name plus your student number plus assignment 3. So Honggiltong 2022 1234 assignment 3 would be fine. Also remember on the assignment page itself, remember to have a title. Remember to capitalize your title correctly. Also include your name and student number. If I printed off your assignment, I should be able to see who wrote it and what their student number is. Also, don't forget to include a word count and then upload that to Cyber Campus by Thursday, May the 12th, class time. All right, if you don't want to do the analysis essay, you could take option number 1, which is to write a narrative essay between 300 to 350 words, 3 to 5 paragraphs. So if you do 4 paragraphs, that's still fine. Introduction, conclusion, 2 body paragraphs, that would be fine. But you'd need to choose one of the following titles. Number 1, the biggest risk I have ever taken. Number 2, the biggest challenge that I have ever faced. Number 3, the funniest thing that has ever happened to me. Number 4, a day I will never forget. So choose one of these topics and please remember that you have to title the file or you have to title the assignment with one of these 4 choices and it has to match. If you write about the biggest risk you have ever taken, you have to be describing a risk, not a challenge. If you are a little bit fuzzy on the difference between a risk and a challenge, please go back and refer to the PowerPoint presentation, which I did in my last class. I can't remember whether I focused on it or not. It's on Cyber Campus, however, you can check it out, where I do describe the difference between a risk and a challenge. Deciding to run a marathon, for example, that's not a risk. That's a challenge. It's something you're trying to prove. You might try to prove something to yourself, maybe to another person. It might be a challenge against nature if you're trying to do a long distance wilderness trek. A risk, on the other hand, is when you do something that is dangerous, you put yourself in danger, usually because you feel there's some kind of benefit or potential benefit. If you went to America, for example, and your parents told you to study English for a year, and you had your month's rent, and you took that to a casino, and you saw a roulette wheel, and you put all of the money on red, for example. Here's my next month's rent money. I'll put it all on red. That is a risk because you could lose all the money. But you hope to get a potential benefit. You know, you could make a lot of money if you win the bet. So please refer to my previous PowerPoint if you would like to see the difference between risk and challenge. If you choose option number 3, the funniest thing that's ever happened to me, please remember there has to be an element of humor in the essay. Funny is quite different from interesting, memorable, or enjoyable. That time you went on a banana boat in Kapyong, that wasn't the funniest thing that ever happened to you. It might be memorable, it might have been enjoyable, it might have been very interesting, but funny includes some element of humor. So there should be something that makes the reader want to laugh. And if you choose number 4, A Day I Will Never Forget, well, that's a pretty open-ended title. I will let you decide how you would like to choose the life event for that one. Okay, and just like the first option or the second option, the analysis essay, the narrative essay will be due by May 12th at class time. Please upload that to Cyber Campus. Okay, and now this is what I'd like to do for the rest of today's lecture. I want to take a look at what I think is quite an interesting topic, which has been explored in a few different analysis essays, and that's why people ignore strangers who need help. Now, if you think about it, there are probably many instances where a person has fallen down in public, maybe somebody is sick, they're ill, they have a heart attack. For some reason, the person is sick, but they are not helped by anyone around them. People will walk past them and pretend that they don't see them. And in many cases, they'll ignore them. There are a few reasons why some people might choose to ignore someone that obviously needs help, if it's a stranger. They might be afraid. Maybe they think the person is just playing a trick and they'll grab the person's wallet or their purse, or they'll try to attack them in some way. They might be scared to help. They might be too busy. They might feel that they have to go to school or go to work. They don't have time to help. Or they might feel what is called the diffusion of responsibility. And this is going to be something that I'd like you to do for participation points before our next class. I'm going to quickly show you a video. We'll be looking at that. And this is about why people will often ignore someone that wants to help, or sorry, ignore someone that needs help. So let me just quickly bring up the video here. And oh, let me just quickly, by the way, if you go to Cyber Campus, you will see this. There we go. If you go to Cyber Campus, I have uploaded an MS Word file. There are a few questions from the video that I'd like you to answer. I'll just quickly show these to you now before we go to the video itself. And let me share the screen here. Oh, where did it go? Okay. Here we are. Oh, where did that go? Okay, here we are. So yeah, Global Communication 1, the bystander effect. You can see the YouTube link here if you want to watch it later on yourself. Part 1, we've got a couple of expressions, pass the buck and raise an eyebrow. Part 2 asks about an old saying, or sokdam, that is used near the beginning of the video. Part 3, there are a couple of detail and opinion questions from the contents of the video. And that's it. Don't worry about the bottom part here. We might be doing that in the first half of our class on Tuesday. Okay, anyway, let's take a look here. So I'll quickly put on the subtitles. There we are. Okay, and let's give this a listen.
It's like this street in New York City. If you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passersby, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill. How long before he gets help? Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow. Please, somebody help me.
It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have a group of, effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help. And it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? 4 minutes later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
Well, people don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You all right? You all right?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you look a bit sleepy. You all right?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
Well, shut up. You all right? Yeah. Strong.
First I thought she was dead. Then I saw, checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed it, because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper. This time, Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm all right.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
While you're lying on the floor in the rain?
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in this position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past. So just like to check that he was okay. And I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be ill. He's going to ruin his suit anyway.
Okay, so that's the end of the video. Oh, let me just close that. All right, we're almost finished today's lecture. So just a quick review. If I go back here very, very quickly. All right, so to start off today's class, I talked a little bit about the article, which I asked you to read for homework, Problem Solvers, which one are you? And then I talked a little bit about analysis essays, what they are, how they're structured, and a few common topics. By the way, if you choose to do an analysis essay for homework, you do not have to do one of the topics that I suggested. I would actually prefer you don't do one of these topics, but choose one of your own. And I also just watched with you and a short video about the bystander effect, which explores why many people ignore strangers who need help. What I'd like you to do for participation points for today is just complete please answer the questions. Sorry, just had a momentary brain lapse there. Please answer the questions on the Word file that I've uploaded to Cyber Campus, and then you'll get participation points for this makeup lecture. We will also take a look at the bystander effect at the beginning of our next class. And last of all, I think I'll be talking more about problem solvers at the beginning of our next class too. Also for homework for, this will be next Tuesday, please read Being a Digger, which is on page 151 and 152, and also complete exercises C and D. That's on page 152 and 153. It takes a look at the article problem solvers. In this case, the person says they're a digger, and they look at 3 reasons why they consider themselves to be a digger. Okay, so all right, so thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture and found it informative. I'll see everybody next week. Bye now.